And pre-moisten the area so that we get this wet in wet. Look at the way my brush drags on the paper. So if there are little speckles of dry paper, I'll use that to advantage. Now I'm going to float color in, and I always work light to dark and warm to cool. I drop the color in a fresh manner onto these stones. So we start with the lightest warm color, and I'm then going to drop in some pinks, and sometimes the pinks will mix with the yellow and other times they sit on their own. So we get this wonderful subtle variety of color. And then I might go to this blue area of the mix that I've made, and that's going to create some cool areas. So those are pretty light, and we start light in watercolor just to build up to the darks so that we don't go in too dark too quickly. Now I'm going to add the deeper grays, and the deeper grays I've made with cobalt blue and a whisper of permanent rose to warm it up, and some of this light red. And light red is not a red, it's a terracotta brown. I use the Winsor & Newton colors there. And I'm floating those in a little bit less water on the brush now, because I want them to stay where I put them, mostly in the crevices. And this is only an underpainting. This is going to be an underwash. I am going to come in and enhance that. Then we can sometimes have the blue on its own. We can put some cooler colors in on its own. It's mixing on the paper. And I notice that there's a certain big stone over here which is deeper than the others. Stronger violet, maybe it's cobalt, light red, and a little bit of permanent rose. Maybe a bit more cobalt there. And we can float that in there. No, I want some more blue. And now I want some more of that light red. So you see how you can work darker and darker, and it's going to create light and shade. So on the subject matter, I'm going to, on my reference here, I'm going to create light colors here and deeper colors in the shadows over there. These, I say light in relation to, it's all about relationships. Relatively light. So I love the color to be separating on the paper. And it's going to separate a little bit under that cling film. I'll show you how to apply that. And these colors, all the variety of colors, because they all have different properties, they do different things. They react differently on the paper. The brown might react differently from the cobalt blue, from the cerulean blue, might react differently from the pink, because transparent colors go into and stain the paper often, and the more opaque or granular the paint is, the more it sits on top of the paper. So we're going to create these effects with the cling film. I've floated in a load of different colors here. Lights and darks. You can see what I'm trying to achieve is a little more light on that side and a little more dark on this side. And they all work a little differently. Every time we do a painting, it's going to come out a fraction different. So you take your little bit of cling film, just enough to not get in your way on the painting. This is called Saran wrap in America. It's cling film here. And I'm crinkling it. And I'm crinkling it onto this area I've just painted to create texture. And those little pleats in there, maybe I've made too many pleats there, are going to dry with, it's a sort of a serendipitous thing when you remove the cling film. You're never quite sure what happens. There's another thing you can do. You can actually charge some color in, float some color in. Where did I put the little brush? Here. in on the side as well. If you feel you haven't got enough strong color and enough darks, you can take a brush and float the color into the edges like this, into the little cracks. And that's another effect you can achieve. And it will go into the little areas that are raised. But we're getting texture there anyway. With the browns and the blues and the pinks, they slightly separate. So then I have another little section that I've painted here, and it's nearly settling down. I'm going to see if the salt technique will work on there. I've got table salt, and I'm sprinkling the salt into that area. So when you use salt, it attracts the water to it, and